You're exhausted not because you do too much, but because everything you do is to avoid disappointing someone. Your existence has become a silent negotiation for affection, an intimate theater where you perform without ever stepping out of character. But notice, the more you adapt to be accepted, the less visible you become to the very people you're trying to please. You're no longer seen, just used. And it's at this exact point that silent exhaustion turns into unbearable pain, hidden beneath the smile you still force yourself to wear every day. Carl Jung warned of a danger you may have never fully seen. The persona is a mask that deceives not only others, but also the one who wears it. How long has it been since you recognized the face in the mirror? This isn't just physical or mental fatigue. It's a deep existential exhaustion, the consequence of years spent suffocating what you truly feel to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. The bitter truth is that this mask you carry is glued to your face with the adhesive of your own insecurity. Machiavelli understood the silent danger behind the constant habit of pleasing. Those who always seek approval become predictable, and the predictable are always easier to manipulate. This nearly compulsive need for affection and validation isn't just emotional fragility. It's unconscious submission to a sophisticated form of social control. Your desperate search for approval has become the perfect tool for your own emotional domestication. An invisible chain you help tighten with every yes you utter against your will. The hardest shock to face is realizing that the first betrayal never comes from others, it comes from you. You learned so early to silence your legitimate anger, to smother any sign of discomfort or displeasure, all in the name of artificial peace, of forced harmony that isn't real peace at all, but masked submission. Every time you give in to preserve that false harmony, you're validating the dangerous idea that you only deserve love if you're gentle, obedient, useful. It's a betrayal of what you truly feel, of what you honestly want to express. Life like this isn't lived, it's merely endured. It's a cruel script that places you at the center of the story, but never in control of it. You stay tired because your effort is never for you. It's always for an idealized version of yourself that you created to please those around you. You didn't consciously choose this prison, but you're deeply committed to maintaining it. And it's precisely that silent commitment to your mask, to your persona, that keeps respect far from you. Because true respect never comes to those who hide behind mechanical smiles and empty kindness. Respect is born in the silent courage to displease. Respect begins when you kill the habit of pleasing. This isn't just a philosophical provocation from Carl Jung. It's a liberating sentence. A painful but necessary call to the reality that true respect never comes for those who hide behind mechanical smiles and hollow kindness. Respect only begins when you allow yourself, for the first time, the discomfort of not pleasing, the hard silence of not explaining yourself, the bold courage to stand firm without guarantees of approval. And now, in this exact moment, perhaps for the first time, you're beginning to see that living to please is living unseen. And maybe you're starting to feel that it's finally time to let the mask you've worn for so long out of pure habit fall away. If this revelation has shaken your perception of who you've been until now, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a real first step toward the authenticity you've longed for. And now, take a deep breath, because this is just the beginning. You've spent so long trying to be what they wanted that you've forgotten what it feels like to simply be. That slow exhaustion you carry, the weight that no amount of rest seems to lift, doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from constantly reshaping yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for who you truly are. The fracture didn't appear overnight. It began in small, quiet moments. The day you learned that being loved wasn't about being yourself, but about being what others needed. That invisible split in your identity grew with every forced smile, every silenced no, every time you swallowed your discomfort to keep the peace. You see, this isn't weakness. It's a survival strategy born in the vulnerable years when approval felt like oxygen, when being agreeable seemed the only way to avoid abandonment, when usefulness became the currency for affection. The psychic weakness that fuels your need to please isn't about fragility of spirit. It's about the ancient, unspoken contract you made as a child. That to be safe, you must erase yourself. That to be worthy of staying, you must give parts of yourself away. And now, as an adult, that contract still binds you, though you can barely remember signing it. But here's the cruel irony. The more you give, the less they see. The more you bend, the more invisible you become. What started as a way to protect yourself has become the very thing that keeps you unseen. And as you offer yourself again and again, hoping to be valued, you find that you're only respected as long as you're useful. Until eventually, even that usefulness is taken for granted. This is the trap no one warns you about. That the habit of pleasing, so carefully built to keep you safe, is the very habit that ensures you'll never be truly respected. And it's here, in this raw truth, that I need to say something you might have been waiting your whole life to hear without knowing it. Respect is born the moment you kill the habit of pleasing. It doesn't come from trying harder. It doesn't come from giving more. It begins the second you decide that your worth isn't up for negotiation, when you stop offering yourself as a sacrifice at the altar of approval, when you let go of the mask that was never truly yours. That is the moment others are forced to see you, not as a function, but as a presence. And if this is resonating, if there's a quiet part of you that feels both seen and unsettled, pause for a breath. Let that discomfort settle. It means something real has just surfaced. And if you're ready to keep walking through this uncomfortable clarity, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for me, for yourself, as a small, defiant act of reclaiming the space you've long been shrinking to fit. Because this isn't the end. It's the first crack in the mask. And beyond it is the life that's been waiting for the real you to finally show up. You were taught, though no one ever said it aloud, that virtue meant shrinking. That, to be good, you had to quiet your anger, smooth over your pain, and keep your true feelings hidden so others wouldn't be uncomfortable. From the earliest moments, you inherited this distorted idea of what it means to be virtuous. A silent contract that taught you to endure instead of resist, to tolerate instead of protect, to give endlessly instead of stand firm. And so, you learned to see your natural anger, your instinct to draw a line, as a flaw, as something shameful, as something that must be buried deep where no one could see. What you called virtue was not born of love. It was designed to keep you small. The image of the endlessly kind, endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving soul wasn't created to honor your humanity. It was built to tame you, to teach you to sacrifice your needs, your boundaries, your truth, so that the world around you could remain undisturbed. And each time you silenced what you felt, you convinced yourself you were doing the right thing. That goodness required this silence. That love required this erasure. But the more you gave, the more invisible you became. And that moral inheritance, the one that told you to suppress your rage for peace, became your cage. This is not real virtue. This is control disguised as goodness. A system that taught you that speaking your truth was selfish, that setting boundaries was cruel, that refusing to please was a betrayal. And while you tried to live by these rules, what happened? Did the world reward you with the respect you deserved? Or did it learn to expect your compliance, your endless tolerance, your quiet endurance? The answer is written in the exhaustion you carry, in the moments you lie awake, wondering why, no matter how much you give, it's never enough. Why the peace you've worked so hard to protect feels so fragile, so false. Nietzsche saw through this game. He called it the morality of slaves, a system of values built not to lift you up, but to keep you obedient. In this system, power is labeled arrogance, self-respect is mistaken for cruelty, and your natural instinct to protect yourself is painted as a threat. And so you stay trapped in this distorted philosophy, loyal to those who benefit from your silence, your sacrifices, your willingness to disappear so they can feel whole. You've been taught to see your suffering as proof of your worth, but suffering does not make you worthy. It only makes you invisible. And now, the choice is in front of you. Will you continue to carry this false virtue like armor that protects everyone but you? Or will you dare to set it down and step into the space your true self was meant to claim? No one will give you permission to do this. They've grown too comfortable with the role you've played. But respect, the kind that lasts, will only begin when you stop mistaking your silence for goodness and your endurance for strength. The world doesn't need another martyr. It needs you, whole and unhidden. You may have spent a lifetime believing that your constant effort to please was proof of your kindness, your goodness, your capacity for love. But here is the truth that most never want to face. What you call pleasing is not selflessness. It is control. Not in the loud, obvious sense, but in the subtle, hidden way that seeks to shape how others feel about you. Every time you erase yourself so they will stay, every time you give more than you have so they will approve, you are not just offering kindness. You are trying, silently, to control their affection, to make them choose you, to secure the connection you fear losing. And in doing so, you bind yourself tighter to a dependency that masquerades as love. The invisible chain tightens with every act of forced generosity. You say yes when you mean no, hoping that your compliance will ensure their loyalty. You overextend, believing that if you give enough, they will finally see you, finally value you, finally stay. But here is the painful irony. The more you give in this way, the more they take, the more they expect, and the more invisible you become. Because what you're offering isn't yourself. It's a version of you shaped by fear, by the need to control how others see you, by the hope that if you sacrifice enough, you will finally be safe. Each of these moments, each smile that hides discomfort, each favor done against your own truth is like another loop in the chain. At first, you may not notice. It feels like love. It feels like connection. But over time, the weight grows. You find yourself unable to move freely, unable to choose without first calculating who might be pleased or displeased. The invisible chain has done its work, and now you are trapped in a cycle where your own worth feels tied to your ability to keep others happy, no matter the cost to yourself. What's most difficult to admit is that this was never about generosity. It was about trying to control what you feared could not be controlled, the hearts and minds of others, the acceptance you craved, the affection you were terrified to lose. You disguised it as virtue, as love, as selflessness. But the truth is clear. Love that must be earned through self-erasure is not love. It is dependency. And dependency breeds resentment, not just within you, but in those you try so hard to please. Because deep down, they sense it. They feel the transaction behind the kindness. And no one respects a transaction that pretends to be a gift. If you are willing to see this, really see it, then you are already beginning to loosen the chain. Because the only way out is to stop trying to control what was never yours to command. To stop mistaking fear for love. To stop offering yourself as a sacrifice in the hope that it will make you safe. Safety does not come from erasing yourself. It comes from standing in your truth, even when that truth displeases. The chain is only as strong as your belief that you need it. And the moment you see it for what it is, it begins to fall away. There is a power that most people never discover because they spend their lives trying to avoid it. It's the power that rises the moment you stop trying to please. The silent force that emerges when you no longer bend, no longer explain, no longer soften yourself so others won't feel uncomfortable. True respect does not come when you give more, when you work harder to be liked, when you explain your worth. It begins the moment you dare to displease, the moment you stop offering your truth in a form that others can easily accept. That's when people are forced to see you, not the version you polished for their comfort, but the presence that no longer asks for permission to exist. You've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes you harsh, that setting boundaries makes you selfish, that refusing to explain yourself is arrogance. But what if none of that is true? What if the refusal to please is not an act of cruelty, but the first true act of self-respect? Every time you soften your no with endless explanations, every time you try to convince someone that your boundary is reasonable, you hand them a piece of your power. And those who thrive on your compliance learn to wait for that weakness. They count on it. Because as long as you keep explaining, keep justifying, keep asking to be understood, you leave the door open for them to challenge you, to question you, to manipulate you back into submission. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology put it into words. Strength doesn't need to announce itself. True power doesn't explain. It simply stands. And that standing, that quiet refusal to bend, is what destabilizes those who seek to control you. Because the game they play requires your participation. When you stop playing, when you stop offering explanations and start offering silence, the game ends. And in that silence, something shifts. People begin to feel the weight of your presence. The manipulators stumble. The ones who once counted on your endless giving have to confront their own discomfort. Because the person who no longer tries to please is the person who can no longer be used. And here's what's most unexpected. When you stop trying to be agreeable, when you let go of the need to explain, you don't become cold or distant. You become clear. You become steady. And that clarity, that steadiness, commands more respect than any apology, any explanation, any softened no ever could. You don't need to convince anyone that your boundary is valid. A boundary is valid because it's yours. And when you begin to live that truth, you no longer have to ask for respect. It begins to appear. Not from everyone, because some will fall away when they can no longer take from you what was never theirs to have, but from those who are capable of seeing and valuing who you are. not just what you give. This is the birth of real respect. It's not loud. It doesn't shout for attention. It begins quietly, in the moments when you choose to stop bending, stop explaining, stop pleasing. It grows in the silence where you no longer defend your right to exist as you are. And in that silence, you finally come home to yourself. There is an image that has been quietly shaping your life, a role you've stepped into so many times that it feels like part of your skin. It's the archetype of the martyr, the eternal giver, the one who believes that love must be earned through sacrifice, that worth is measured by how much you can endure. You didn't choose this role consciously. It was handed to you, piece by piece, through the unspoken lessons of childhood, through the silent expectations of those around you, and slowly, you accepted it. You learned to see your suffering as proof of your goodness, your endless giving as evidence that you deserved to belong. But look closely. The martyr's path doesn't lead to love, it leads to invisibility. The martyr believes that their value lies in how much they can offer, how much they can bend, how much they can bleed. But the tragedy is this: in trying to be indispensable, you become replaceable. When people come to see you only for what you give, they stop seeing you at all. You become a function, not a person, a role, not a presence. And when your well runs dry, when you have nothing left to offer, they move on, not out of cruelty, but because that was the agreement you taught them to expect, that your place in their life depended on what you could provide, not on who you are. This is the trap of the eternal giver. The belief that if you just give enough, suffer enough, endure enough, you will finally be loved as you long to be. But the love that requires your self-erasure is not love, it is dependency. It is a dynamic where your pain becomes the price of connection, where your silence is mistaken for harmony, where your sacrifice is expected, not cherished. And with every act of overgiving, the distance between your true self and the role you play grows wider, until one day you can no longer remember who you were before you learn to disappear. The most painful part is that this pattern often starts with genuine care. You wanted to help, to support, to protect. But somewhere along the way, helping became saving, supporting became sacrificing, and now you stand at the edge of yourself, unsure where your needs end and where theirs begin. The martyr archetype consumes not just your energy, but your identity. It convinces you that to matter, you must hurt, that to belong, you must bleed. But respect does not grow from sacrifice. It grows from presence, from the quiet strength of someone who knows that their worth is not measured by their suffering. The ones who truly see you, who truly value you, are not those who feed on your endless giving. They are those who can sit with your no, who can honor your limits, who can love the self that remains when you stop trying to save the world. There comes a moment when you must step down from the cross you've built for yourself, when you must choose, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, to stop bleeding for a love that can never be earned through pain. The martyr's path is lonely, not because no one cares, but because you've taught them not to see you, only what you give. And it ends the day you decide that your existence is not a gift for others to consume, but a presence to be met, seen, and respected for what it truly is. You've spent so long bending, softening, explaining, offering yourself in pieces, hoping that it would be enough. Enough to be loved, enough to be seen, enough to finally feel safe in a world that taught you your worth was measured by what you gave. But now, in the silence that follows the collapse of those old roles, comes a harder question. Who are you when you stop performing? when the mask of pleasing falls, when the habit of self-erasure ends, when the martyr steps down from the cross, what remains? This is where respect is born. Not in what you offer, not in how well you endure, but in what you claim as yours without apology. Carl Jung spoke of this with a clarity few have dared to face. The death of the compulsive pleaser is the birth of the authentic self. You've tried for so long to earn respect through endless giving, through quiet sacrifice, through self-control so rigid it became its own prison. But respect can't be bargained for. It can't be bought with suffering. It rises the moment you choose to integrate the parts of yourself you've long avoided, the shadow, the anger, the desire to stand without bending. When you stop seeing those parts as flaws and begin to see them as the foundation of who you are meant to be. What happens when you finally say no without softening it? When you draw a line and let it stand without explanation, without apology? What happens is simple. The world reorganizes around your presence. Some will fall away because they were never there for you, only for what you provided. Some will resist because they relied on your silence to feel powerful. But those who remain, those who respect what you claim, will meet you as you are, and that meeting will be real. For the first time, you will not be valued for how much you can endure, but for the strength it takes to stop enduring what was never yours to carry. Nietzsche's words echo here with a truth that cuts deep. He who cannot hate cannot love. The refusal to please is not an act of hate. It is the first true act of love for yourself. Because love without boundaries is not love. It is consumption. It is erasure. And you were not born to be erased. The respect you seek, the peace you long for, begins not when others finally see you, but when you choose to see yourself, whole and unhidden, beyond the mask, beyond the role, beyond the habit of pleasing that kept you small. So let the image linger, the throne made of the broken chains of false kindness, a seat you build, not by giving more, but by refusing to give yourself away. Respect begins where submission ends, and it waits for you on the other side of the role you've played for far too long. If these words spoke to the part of you that is done with shrinking, done with begging, done with performing, I invite you now, with no performance, no obligation, no transaction, leave a comment below. Share what shifted for you. Subscribe to this channel, not as an act of pleasing, but as a declaration that you are ready to claim what was always yours. The right to stand, seen and respected, as you truly are. This is the beginning. Let it echo, let it stay.